What is up, TFA fam? Thank you for joining us for another show. Tonight, we are wrapping things up with our look at the top prospects of the 2021 NFL Draft, and we are hitting on the tight ends last. For both of us, I think it's pretty cut and dry. Our order and our numbers are a little different, but it's really the top three at the class, and then kind of whatever you're looking for at 4 and 5. So we're just going to talk about the top 5 guys here. Number 1 for both of us. Number 1 for everybody. This is locked in, locked and loaded. If you see anyone with a different number 1, they're either a homer of that team or they're just trying to be different for the sake of being different. That is Kyle Pitts. If you want to see a full video into him, Kev already covered him. I think that was one of the first ones that you did after Javonte, I believe, Kev. So I'm going to give you the floor here. Tell the people about Kyle Pitts and why he is the unquestioned number 1 tight end in this class.
I think if you took out probably the quarterbacks, he's probably the number 2 or number 3 overall prospect in the entire class. That's how good he is. If he was a wide receiver, he'd be a first-round pick. But he's a tight end. He is, we throw around that term generational a lot, but he certainly is that at the tight end position. Only 20 years old. Posted a 32.3 college dominator, 91st percentile, 17.9 yards per reception, 96th percentile with an 18.9 breakout age, 95th percentile. He was terrific the last 2 years that he played. His junior year, which is his past year, 43 receptions, 65 targets, 770 yards, 12 touchdowns in 8 games. The year before, 54 receptions, 79 targets, 649 yards, 5 touchdowns. He was number 1 in deep targets, receiving yards, or receptions and receiving yards. And then he was 3rd in yards per route run with 3.26 yards per reception, which was number 1. 4.91 yards per route run versus man coverage, which is fucking insane. 2nd in yards after the catch. The dude's just the real deal, okay? The only thing that maybe people would hold people back in fantasy, like even redraft for this year or Dynasty, is understanding that sometimes tight ends take a little bit of time to develop and on the next level. I don't think that's going to be the case for him. I think he's going to be able to come right in for a team, depending on landing spot. If he falls in the right spot, I think it's wheels up for Kyle Pitts year 1. I already have Kyle Pitts in redraft ranked as a top 10 tight end, and I don't even know where he's going. He is that good. Guys like this don't come around very often. We don't have to talk for much more. Like I said, if you want to watch the full breakdown of him, you can go and watch that other video. But the only weaknesses you can really come up with him is he's not a very good blocker. He is at best a functional blocker, and that's it. But I don't think teams are going to be asking him to block too much. He's not George Kittle, right? You don't want him. He doesn't need to be that. I think that he could be prime Jimmy Graham. I think he can hit that type of ceiling. And if I know now, when you look back at Jimmy Graham, it's been a long time since he was that good. But Saints Jimmy Graham was fucking elite.
As long as he gets with an offense that understands his strengths and they're going to put him in a position to win, there's really nothing that's going to hold him back. I'm going to talk about Pat Freiermuth. He's my 2. He is your number 3 for the top tight ends of the 2021 NFL Draft. I just think he's the best all-around tight end in this class in terms of his blocking. He can get it done in the receiving game as well. I think going into the 2020 season, he ran a 4.2 or a 4.1, a high 4.1, low 4.2 3-cone drill that was better than some guys like Njoku. I think it was better than Evan Ingram as well. He's not going to have the 40 time of somebody like a George Kittle. His 40 time is going to be slower, but he's an above average athlete. He can get it done there as well. Like I said, you can see him if you watch the Memphis game, just straight bulldozing cats. As a true freshman is whenever he broke out. Had 8 touchdowns as a true freshman, 7 in his sophomore year, and then ended up injured in his junior year. But I'll throw it to you, Kev, to talk about these numbers a little bit for Pat Freiermuth before you go to your number 2, and we'll talk about him next.
I guess now the new thing every year is we're going to call every one tight end baby Gronk every year, because apparently that's what everybody's calling Freiermuth, and I'm just okay, here we go again. That's the next baby Gronk here. But he's 6'5", 258. He had a 27.8 target share, 27.9 college dominator, which was 84th percentile. 14.2 yards per reception, 70th percentile, and a 19.9 breakout age, 82nd percentile. The last 2 seasons, 43 receptions on 61 targets, 507 receiving yards on 7 touchdowns, and then 23 receptions, 37 targets, 310 yards, and 1 touchdown. Looking at some of the advanced numbers, nothing really stands out to you outside of probably one, but 2.33 yards per route run, 5.7 yards after contact per reception, which was 49th, 9.4 average depth of target, which was 43rd, 1 deep catch for 74 yards, and 8 contested catches, which was 8th. I'll say this, in the little bit that I've watched of him, I will say that he will run through a motherfucker's face. Like, you aren't just taking him down on first contact. You better come ready to tackle him whenever you're coming after him. He is a really good blocker. I think he has decent separation for a player his size, but he's not overly athletic either. He does have a basketball background. In high school, he was actually a very well regarded basketball player, which checked the box for the cliche tight end. With him, I do think that he is a really good all-around tight end, and I think that he doesn't have the highest ceiling. Obviously, that's Kyle Pitts, and it's not close, but I think in terms of these other guys, like you might feel like, especially, I think he translates probably best to the NFL and maybe probably the safest guy not named Kyle Pitts. And you might say, okay, well, why do you have Brevin Jordan higher? And I think for me, some of it's just overall athleticism. Like, Brevin Jordan he's absolutely a move tight end. Like, he is 6'3", 240. He is not somebody that really, he's not a great blocker. I mean, I will give him this. He doesn't shy away from it, but he's not somebody that's going to consistently take on defensive ends and and be able to really be a force there. It's not his game, which is fine. Another very young tight end. He's only 20 years old. 31.5 college dominator, which was 90th percentile. 15.2 yards per reception, 78th percentile, with an 18.1 breakout age, 99th percentile. So that is one of the best ever recorded. In 2019, 35 receptions, 52 on 52 targets, 495 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns. 2020, 38 receptions, 53 targets, 576 receiving yards, 7 touchdowns. So, and even the advanced stats, like, he is upper percentile in every one of them. 9.3 yards after catch per reception, 6th, 9 missed tackles forced, which was 4th, 8.2 average depth of target, 3 deep receptions, and he was also 8th in deep yards, 2 contested catches, right? He really kind of looks like a jumbo running back whenever you watch him after the catch, right? He had 21 broken tackles on 105 career catches. His speed, he's no doubt the most athletic tight end in this class. And I don't think it's close. He is like as close to what we saw from David Njoku whenever he was coming out. He's also very good at separating 2.93 yards per out run versus man coverage, which is also excellent. I think that, if he can put on a little bit more weight, but I don't think it's really going to matter at 6'3". Like, a lot of time when you watch him, he kind of looks like a bigger wide receiver. Kind of like as I'm watching Anquan Bolden here, because, I mean, he's not a bigger guy, maybe more Evan Ingram-like, but I just think with his athleticism and the right offense, like, this dude can be a beast, a top 10 tight end every year in fantasy football.
Yeah, that was the thing that jumped off the screen to me whenever I was watching him. Like, if you just took away, like, if you were just watching and you had no idea that he was listed as a tight end, you might look and be like, oh man, that's a wide receiver. Like, that, he just looked that way. He's quick off the line. He has that burst. He has that athleticism. And like you said, like, as far as being a functional blocker, I was personally expecting much worse, just seeing like what people were saying about him in terms of his blocking ability. I think a lot of where he struggles is more technique related. Like, he does the wide hug thing with his hands instead of just keeping his hands close and punching for the chest. And like, he does seem to like stand straight up. So whenever he is engaged with defenders, that kind of allows them to control him because he doesn't have that leverage. But I think those are all technique things that can be taught, and he can definitely improve as a blocker. He's at 3 for me. We already touched on him, so I think we can move on. At 4, I have Hunter Long. I know your 4th is a little bit different, but just for me, for Hunter Long, he's solid. He's like solid across the board. Not a great athlete, not a bad athlete. He probably is the second best blocking tight end out of this group. I think that is a strength of his, but obviously we are not playing in points per block, points per pancake kind of fantasy league. So he's just one of those guys, like you kind of calmed him. It reminded him of of an Austin Hooper. He's kind of one of those guys going to be super steady. He was almost like Hayden Hurst-ish for me. He's one of those one pace kind of runners. He doesn't have that extra gear, but he's also not slow either. So for me, just an all around, solid tight end. honestly, after these top three, I wouldn't be like looking at these guys, especially for redraft. If you want to throw a fourth round pick at one of these tight ends in your dynasty leagues and kind of just let them sit and see what happens, that's fine. The top three is where you should be looking. And then after that, we kind of just get like to whatever kind of territory.
A lot of what you said, like he showed some flashes of some things that were impressive. I will say, as going up, high pointing the ball, he had 11 contested catches this past year, which was third among all tight ends. Which as soon as you turn on any tape and watch him, you immediately see that he is great in traffic and being able to come up. Physical, and he's still younger. I mean, he's only 21 years old. He broke out at 20, which is 80th percentile, 21.8 college dominator, 69th percentile with a 12.0 yard per reception. This year, he had 57 receptions for 685 yards, 23% target share on 5 touchdowns on 91 targets, 3.1 yards after the catch per reception, which was 102nd. 10.1 average depth of target, which was 31st. 3 deep catches, 97 deep yards, 11 contested catches with a 1.74 yards per route run. Like he was basically the focal point of the Boston College offense. I mean, he had a game this year where he had 17 targets. He is a good blocker, but he's kind of like that classic, just that like the Jason Witten, esque type tight end, right? The slow dad runner tight end. Like I didn't think he was athletic at all. Like I thought he was a very average athlete. I don't think he's a great route runner. He's not really, somebody that you would say that he has agility or anything like that. But I think that if you get him, I think that he can be somebody that, especially in the red zone, I think he can translate very well there and be kind of a bully down there. So I do like that about him. But overall, like he just wasn't anything special to me. I'm like, okay, this is Hunter Long. Okay, cool. I think he can be a decent tight end in the next level. He could be, he could have some tight end one season and stuff like that, but it's not anybody that's going to wow you. He's not ever going to be a Travis Kelce or George Kittle or even a Mark Andrews type. Like, I think he's somebody that's probably going to fall the back end of a tight end one, and I think that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. For me, my other guys my 4 is Kenny Yeboah. I think that he offers a lot in terms of upside. He didn't get a ton of opportunity, and that's going to be the theme for the next 2 guys that I actually have at 4 and 5. But he's 6'4", 247, 22 years old, 25.1 college dominator, which was 77th percentile, 19.4 yards per reception, 94th percentile, 20.9 breakout age. In 2019, he only had 19 receptions for 233 yards, 5 touchdowns. 2020, on 7 games, 27 receptions, 37 targets, 524 receiving yards, and 6 touchdowns. He had a 9.0 yards after catch per reception, which was 8th, 11.3 average depth of target, which was 20th, 5 deep receptions for 158 yards, 6th, 3 contested catches at a 2.09 yards per route run. Listen, watching him, like he is definitely one of the more athletic tight ends as well in this class. Kind of raw. He didn't get a ton of opportunity playing at Ole Miss because we know Elijah Moore took all of that. Like he was the offense there. We already know that. But Kenny Yeboah, there were certain games that he certainly flashed in that you saw, okay, this guy can be really special. And I just think his ceiling is higher than a guy like Hunter Long, right? Where Hunter Long has a much better floor. I think you can probably count on that. But for Kenny Yeboah, he lands in the right space and gets the opportunity. I think that he can be somebody that we look at the next level. Because overall, I think this tight end class is much better than probably what people are giving it credit for. I think it could be one of the better tight end classes we've seen in a while. And I do think that he translates into a guy that I think that could end up being a steal in this draft.
When I was watching Yeboah, you mentioned the flashes, and I agree, but there were like a lot of times where it was just like, all right, man, I saw that burst before. Where is that now? Like, I just wanted to see like more consistently. And then I went and looked at, his stuff on Player Profile, where you're looking at, his college yards per reception up in the 98th percentile and everything like that. And I'm just like, I don't know. Like I said, I just like left wanting more, especially after seeing some of his statistical profile there. Yeboah is my 5. Just another name that I'll throw out there too, someone who I kind of like, when we're talking about flashes. Noah Gray is a name that I would just keep an eye on. He was someone who, when I was watching him, I was like, oh, okay. He has a little bit of juice. It kind of seemed, his movement skills were there too. Just didn't have obviously a ton of production coming out of Duke, but that is another name that I would be keeping an eye on in the draft just to kind of see where he lands. That was someone who I was interested in.
Yeah, and one guy for me too is Tommy Tremble, Notre Dame, 6'4", 248. He's also a younger tight end, only 20 years old. He didn't do a whole lot in college. 11.8 college dominator, which is terrible. 11.3 yards per reception. In 2020, he only had 19 receptions for 218 yards, no touchdowns. 2019, 16 receptions, 183 yards, 4 touchdowns. He didn't do a whole lot. He was asked to block. Like he very well could be the best blocker in this class. Like he is a mauler as a blocker, right? But that's not what I got excited about. But he has tremendous athleticism, and I don't know why they didn't use him more as a receiver, because you can see it. The little bit that I watched of him, the little bit of tape you can see on him, because there's not a lot in terms of as a receiver. He gets separation. He has excellent burst for a tight end. I don't know why they didn't use him more in Notre Dame. It could have been just because of the way that their offense was set up and the way that they wanted to use him, and because how good of a blocker he was, so they used him there. But at the next level, I think he can be special. And actually, I saw the other day, Marcus Mosher was talking about him and said that he thought he could be George Kittle. Like he has George Kittle qualities. And so, which I get some of it because of how excellent a blocker he is, his athleticism. But like I said, he is super, super raw. So I think he's probably going to end up being probably a 4th-round pick somewhere to a team. And if he can kind of work his way up the depth chart, he's going to have a role no matter what because of how good of a blocker he is. But if he can be utilized more as a pass catcher, I think that he could end up being a really special talent in this draft. You know, obviously he's not anywhere on the radar and redraft. In Dynasty, I doubt you're taking him with any pick, you know, maybe a 4th round in a tight end premium league or something like that if he gets good draft capital. But I just think he's definitely a name to watch.
All right, guys, that is going to wrap it up for the 2021 NFL Draft look at the tight ends. Drop a comment. Let us know who you're interested in. If there's anyone you want to see us do a deeper dive on and do a profile on, you can drop that as well. If you're listening to us on podcast form, leave a rate and review. We really do appreciate all the feedback and support we have been getting. Keep your eyes peeled. Keep it locked in here, and we will talk to you all soon.